When Frank Costello's face landed on the cover of Time magazine in 1949, it wasn't just a publicity hit, it was a warning shot. Costello was supposed to be the invisible boss, the politician in a fedora. Now he was public property, and that meant trouble for everyone orbiting him, including Joe Adonis. The spotlight on Costello lit up the entire Luciano network, because by then it wasn't just one family. It was a web: Costello, Adonis, Anastasia'a, Mangano, Gambino, tied by decades of blood money and silence. Joe Adonis had positioned himself as a bridge, loyal to Luciano, helping Anastasia'a control the Mangano family, backing Gambino and tough Tony Anastasio on the docks. But the writing was on the wall. The press was circling. The feds were closing in. Deportation was coming. So Adonis began selling off assets, handing parts of his empire to Gambino, quietly, in pieces. Not everything. He still wanted a cut. But Gambino had cash and vision. Joe had headlines and subpoenas. Then came the knock. December 2nd, 1950. Estes Kiefover's Senate Crime Committee wanted a word. He was under bond in both New York and New Jersey for gambling. It didn't matter. The committee was clear. Joe Adonis was going to testify. His lawyer, Harold Corbin, played jurisdiction games, arguing the charges didn't even constitute a crime in New York County. Assistant D. A Vincent O'Connor wasn't having it. Gambling syndicates were interstate. States had to step up or step aside. Adonis wasn't going in alone. His co-defendants, Longano, Lynch, Moretti, Guarini, were all on $20,000 bond. Mob pedigree, same hook. 2 days later, it was official. Adonis was being called to Washington. Public hearing, cameras, microphones. The committee wanted names, numbers, connections. Northern New Jersey was now ground zero. Adonis was the keystone. Not everyone approved. Bergen County's Deputy Attorney General Nelson Stamler blasted the hearings. If I want to question a man, I bring him to my office. He had the files, the witnesses, the gambling dens. But the feds had the script, and Adonis was going to read it on live TV. By December 9th, Judge Leiden approved Adonis and company to attend the hearings. Bail bonds were secured. Still, Stamler protested, "Why go there when the backyard has all the evidence?" Trenton tried to gag him, but Governor Driscoll killed the order. Adonis, meanwhile, played the angles, but the board was shrinking. Gambino stood in the shadows, waiting. On December 12, 1950, Adonis walked into the lion's den and did what every mob boss, with a lawyer and a future, does. He pled the fifth. Dressed like a banker, calm and clipped, every question met the same reply. I respectfully declined to answer. Names, income, business, Stonewall. Committee counsel Rudolph Halley, Senator Tobey, and Kiefover all took swings. Nothing. Moretti had gone before him and done the same, claimed he earned $84,000 last year, but lost the records. Said he wasn't avoiding subpoenas, just took a little trip. He admitted knowing Costello, Luciano, Erickson, but denied any business. Claimed he'd never heard of the Mafia or Unione Siciliana. Adonis kept pace. Asked about the automotive conveying company, a Ford-linked transport firm. He clammed up, even with evidence of ownership. Where was he born? Passaic, 1901. Where did he grow up? Brooklyn. Why New Jersey? I like the climate better. Halley smirked. Cooler over there? We're 900 feet above sea level. Adonis deadpanned. Asked about gambling houses in multiple states, legitimate income, or a 1937 paper listing payouts totaling over $200,000 with Frank C. on it. He said nothing. But behind the silence was calculation. The fifth was his shield. He knew federal agents were in the gallery, FBI, IRS, Treasury. Any crack would be used against him later. Kefauver called it what it was: defiance. But the hearings were never about discovery. They were about pressure, about breaking the image. 2 more witnesses, Rutkin and Katina, missed their appearances. Rutkin had ulcers, Katina a heart condition. Kefauver wasn't buying it. On December 13th, the committee recessed, but Adonis stayed under subpoena. Contempt charges were coming: 1 year in prison, $1,000 per unanswered question. Multiply that by dozens. But that wasn't the fatal mistake. December 12th, 1950, the day Joe Adonis sealed his fate. On record, under oath, he said, "I was born in America." It was a lie, a simple one, but it was enough. The government went to work. School records, nothing. Childhood friends, nothing. Birth certificates, nothing. Then, something. He was born in Italy. Adonis had gambled on a lie and lost. He dodged bullets and subpoenas since the 20s, but this was different. Post-Kefauver, post-Costello's bullet, post-Anastasia's looming war. The old guard was finished. The public wanted blood. The government was done tolerating them. Every time they looked at Costello, they saw Adonis. Pull Anastasia's files. Adonis's name was there too. They weren't just connected. They were entangled. 3 names, 3 kings, 3 deportation orders. By 1955, one of them was gone. Joe Adonis. Carlo Gambino was the ghost in the machine. While others lit cigars with $100 bills and made headlines, Gambino stayed quiet. A modest house, a modest wife, an empire built in silence. No clubs, no women, no press, just blood and business. He trusted only his brothers and cousins, Gambinos and Castellanos, a tight circle. No flash, no noise. To strangers, he was just a quiet Sicilian with good shoes. While others burned money in casinos, Gambino stacked his. He spent like a peasant and saved like a banker. Trouble? He already had lawyers on retainer. Joe Adonis was the opposite. Flash over form, expensive suits, track losses, bottles, broads, headlines. He treated money like it grew on trees and thought the law couldn't touch him. But the game had changed. Luciano was exiled. Anastasia'a under fire. The Bonanos, Lucchese, Profaci, all on the radar. Only the silent ones stood a chance. Not Adonis. The Kefauver hearings turned the spotlight directly on him. It bruised him and broke him. He didn't have the bankroll or political cover to ride it out. Gambino was richer, quieter, and far more dangerous. By 1951, Adonis had run out of luck. For decades, he was the untouchable. Handsome, polished, always 2 steps ahead. But when Kefauver came knocking, it all cracked. Now it was prison, deportation, or a bullet. In June 1951, he stood in court one last time, pleaded no contest, hoping for leniency. Instead, 2 to 3 years in prison, $15,000 fine, 5 years probation. Not a death sentence, but his first real time behind bars. The mask cracked. The cameras caught it all. From 1926 to 1951, Adonis had been arrested countless times, but never locked up. Now, for the first time, he couldn't walk away. The Hague machine that once protected him was gone. Eriksson was already serving time. Costello had been dragged into hearings. Now it was Joe's turn. Adonis tried to pass himself off as a salesman, but the mansion in Fort Lee, the wardrobe, the lifestyle, it didn't add up. He was 49, still striking, a face like George Raft, if Raft had played a mobster who won. He started under Frankie Yale, took over the crew after Yale was gunned down, opened Joe's Italian kitchen in Brooklyn, speakeasy, extortion parlor, gambling den. That was his rise. From there, Luciano, Costello, Genovese, Anastasia'a. He didn't just follow the syndicate, he helped build it. Where the old-school bosses used muscle, Adonis used modernity, streamlined, corporate, strategic. He even tried politics. Backed LaGuardia in 1933. Bad bet. LaGuardia couldn't be bought. When he won re-election, Adonis lost every political connection he had. Licenses pulled. Raids followed. He was told, "Get out of New York." So he did. New Jersey was open, and Frank Hague's men looked the other way. By the early 40s, Adonis was a powerhouse. Gambling clubs statewide, interests in Havana, Miami, even Hollywood. Virginia Hill, courier, syndicate liaison, was briefly tied to him. Then Siegel, then both. Hill wasn't carrying love letters. She was moving intel, drugs, money, orders. The triangle was about power, not romance. Adonis never really pulled out. The World Telegram called his retirement wishful thinking in 1949. They were right. He was too deep. Now he was exposed. The mob had a problem. Adonis behind bars, vulnerable. Joe Adonis, who dodged every bullet without firing one, was finally out of time. Senator Estes Kefauver's crime committee stormed into Miami to expose the syndicate's grip on South Florida. Americans were losing up to $22 billion a year to organized crime, more than the military budget. Gambling was the tap, and the syndicate thrived here. Subpoenas went out. Some names vanished, others stayed quiet. Walter Morris, former grand jury foreman, admitted criminals operated in plain sight. Sheriff Jimmy Sullivan. Out fishing. Judge Stanley Millage described high-tech bookie stations busted at Surfside Hotel. One arrest, no trial. Law enforcement was too compromised. Officers sabotaged citizen raids. "You've got people in office who want to enforce the law," Millage said, "and others who don't." Daniel Sullivan, ex-Florida Racing Commission official, mapped the gambling wire from Baltimore to Miami. Central hubs included the Dade County news dealers and the farm in Broward, which funneled betting lines across the state. By 1950, over 120 betting spots operated in Miami. Even after race wires were banned in 1949, operations went underground. Key syndicate centers included Colonial Inn, run by Meyer Lansky, Jake Lansky, Joe Adonis, Vincent Jimmy Blue Eyes, Allo, Frank Erickson, and Detroit's Joe Massey and William Lefty Clark. Club Greenacres, same ownership. Bischoff ran dice games. Massey funded him. Island Club, Sunny Isles. Friedlander, Sam Cohen, Game Boy Mannheim, and Cleveland Detroit partners. Frank Erickson operated from Miami hotels like the Wofford and Roney Plaza, using cabanas for layoff betting. He held silent stakes in multiple clubs and laundered bets through racetrack mutual machines. The Wofford Hotel, leased by frontmen, became a syndicate hub. Notables visited: Little Augie Carfano, Charles Fischetti, Angelo, Jip. DeCarlo, Trigger, Mike Coppola, Frank Costello, and Lansky himself. Joe Massey, tied to multiple Miami properties and businesses, co-owned the Miami Provision Co. and invested in restaurants. His longtime partner Lefty Clark lived nearby and controlled Club Greenacres. Detroit's crew, Licavoli, Bomarito, Lieberman, McHugh, Bernstein, were all active. Chicago's Tony Accardo and brother Martin had homes in the area. Louis Ricciardi, with serious priors, also lived in Harding Avenue. The S&G syndicate dominated Miami Beach. Operators included Jules Levitt, Sam Cohen, Charles Friedman, and Harry Russell, ex-Capone man. After the 1949 wire shutdown, Russell rewired the network in 10 days. S&G ran Club 86, Sunny Isles Casino, and Island Club. They netted up to $40 million yearly, with half the profits staying local. The rest flowed north, to New York, Jersey, and Chicago. The Martinique Hotel, allegedly owned by Kid Can Blumenfeld, was a front for the Berman brothers. Julius Kramer, aka Jules Beeman, ran the gambling floor. The Little Syndicate, Sammy Clark and Harris Levinson, controlled other clubs like Boheme and Greenacres. Syndicate connected real estate and rezoning plays covered Miami Beach from 43rd to 62nd Street. Wire surveillance expanded via illegal switchboards, piggybacking hotel music systems run by Benny Kay's Lyric Wired Music Co. Bookkeepers and attorneys shielded the paper trails. New Florida laws banned donations from track owners and shut down race wires, but the syndicate adapted with underground networks. By 1950, Meyer Lansky had evolved from mobster to the mob's banker. His financial empire spanned from Miami to Havana and the Waldorf. Every major family, Genovese, Lucchese, Gambino, trusted him. He wasn't muscle, he was money. He moved hundreds of millions across Swiss banks and casinos. When Lansky pitched a deal, the commission didn't vote. It invested. Gambino, quiet and calculating, trusted Lansky deeply, an alliance that would prove fateful. As Kayforva's hearings spread and Cuba opened up, Lansky shifted south. He expanded in Havana and across the Caribbean with backing from Gambino, Lucchese and others. He built casinos, hotels and banking fronts. But in 1959, Castro took Havana and Lansky's empire collapsed. Hundreds of millions were lost overnight. He should have been finished. Joe Adonis, who helped Lansky dominate Miami gambling, had already been deported. He once served as a bridge between New York and South Florida rackets. His absence created a vacuum. With Lansky wounded and Adonis gone, the question became, who would take over? Carlo Gambino stepped in. He and Russell Bufalino backed Lansky financially, not out of loyalty, but strategy. They needed a reliable banker to stabilize the transition. Lansky stepped back, focused on Las Vegas, legitimacy, real estate, corporations. He was no longer king, but still essential. Gambino, operating in the shadows, expanded his influence silently. Unlike Luciano, Costello, or Genovese, who faced exile, prison, or assassination, Gambino avoided headlines. While others fell, he consolidated. As the old guard crumbled, Gambino inherited the empire Lansky and Adonis had helped build. He absorbed Miami's remnants into a quieter, more profitable operation, insulated from law enforcement. He stayed out of view, but fully in control, an underworld CEO rising as the flashy generation fell.